Welcome back and many thanks for joining us on the program on the newspaper review. Now we have joining us to converse and discuss on the very, very critical topic on the front burner of the Punch newspaper, talking about the federal government first executive council meeting and all that transpired therein. We have Rotimi Akinola joining us this morning. Rotimi Akinola is a media analyst. Good morning, Mr. Rotimi, and many thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Good morning, Joseph, and everyone in the studio there. It's a beautiful day.
Good morning.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us on the program. First of all, let me ask, previous governments or governments in the past, they've come and some of them know they will table their plans. The Jonathan administration did table his plans he wants to achieve, probably in the space of 8 years or 10 years, as was his own case was peculiar, but I don't think he was able to do that. The Buhari administration came up with reviving the economy, fighting corruption, completely removing insecurity on our path, and today all these things that he tabled before Nigerians are still with us. Some of them have grown on. But the Tinubu's administration just said that he has an 8-point agenda. Well, the 8-point agenda has been on before this Federal Executive Council meeting. And like he want the first phase to be achieved within the space of 3 years. What's your perspective on that?
All right. So it's, once again, thank you for having me this morning. I think it's instructive for a new government to come on board and then put forward a plan that it has for the people. Jonathan did it, like you mentioned. Buhari did it. Obasanjo did it. Everyone is going to do it. So Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is going to do it as president of the Federal Republic. But what I want us to realize here is what the government is not saying. What the government is saying without saying. By coming up with an 8-point agenda and then telling Nigerians that you will need 3 years to implement a part of that agenda.
Yeah.
The president is simply telling Nigerians that you have to be patient with me. Do not expect instant results. That is what he's saying. And it's not a bad thing to say because government is a continuum. It's a continuum in the sense that development itself have to be implemented incrementally over time. It is hard to have a revolution in terms of governance. Everything has to come gradually. So from one administration to another. And then within an administration itself, you cannot expect a government to come on board and then everything is going to become rosy. This is one story politicians do not tell Nigerians. It's one of the areas where we are getting it wrong. Let me digress a bit. Okay. Let us assume that it was Peter Obi or Atiku Abubakar who won this presidential election, as INEC declared. Okay, the results are still being contested in court. Let's assume it was Peter Obi. A portion of the populace may be expecting that, even if the tribunal were to remove Peter Obi today, within 6 months, everything will become, all good and rosy. Governance does not work like that. Development does not work like that. And then Tinubu understands this. That is why he is telling the people. And every politician needs to tell this to those who follow them, including Peter Obi or Atiku Abubakar. Right. They need to start to prepare their minds. Peter Obi needs to tell his people, if I am declared the president and Tinubu is removed, that does not mean that Nigeria is going to become Dubai in 2 years or in 1 year. Development takes time. So this is the first federal executive meeting Tinubu is having with his cabinet. He just named them, named the members of his cabinet. So it is instructive, and it's the normal thing for him to try to put a time frame within the implementation of his agenda.
Okay.
So.
Rotimi Akinola,
he's in order.
Right. The things that are on Tinubu's 8-point agenda are very salient and, pertinent issues that I must say needs to be addressed. Now, we know that the economy has been imbalanced for a very long time now, and Nigerians are feeling the brunt of the hardship so much, despite the fact that, you know, the federal government released the sum of 180 billion naira to states and all of that. It still feels like nothing has changed. Now, seeing this plan and seeing that the president in a subtle way is telling us, okay, you need to be patient with me. So what are some of the measures or the steps that the federal government can take that are pretty immediate or not too far, talking about 3 years? What are some of the plans that they can take very soon to help reduce this pressure and hardship that is biting deep into Nigerians and, you know, affecting living as a Nigerian right now?
That's a very, very important question. That's a very, very good question. So I do not even want to measure it in terms of what the president can do to make life easier before his agenda is fully materialized. I want to put it in the context of what the government shouldn't have done.
Okay.
What the government shouldn't have done, because from what the president is saying now, it's going to take time before Nigerians can feel the impact of his government. And that is accurate. That is true. Whether or not the Tinubu administration is legitimate or not, okay, even if it was the military that assists the government, there will be instant impact. And then by the time they want to start to course correct, it's going to take time before we can begin to reap the dividends of democracy. The issue of fuel subsidy, one of the biggest problems the Tinubu administration brought upon itself is by removing, because of course the Buhari administration ended fuel subsidy payments.
Yeah.
But the declaration during the inauguration that fuel subsidy was over sent the economy into serious shock. Okay?
Yeah.
Atiku promised to remove it. Peter Obi promised to remove it. But the Tinubu administration has been criticized over the manner in which it is being removed. You understand? So the 180 billion naira that the president released into the economy should have been released into the economy before the announcement that fuel subsidy was no longer. Okay. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So maybe the Tinubu administration should have planned to pay, to continue to pay subsidy payments till the end of the year. You understand that when we entered 2023, the CBN was trying to remove some cash from circulation, and then the time frame for the removal was around 3 months. Because of the short time frame, it sent the economy into a shock. So government has to plan. Mr. Tinubu now is telling us that it's going to take time to implement the agenda, but it should have given Nigerians ample time to remove fuel subsidy, maybe 6 months. Do you understand that? So within the 6 months, you pump 180 billion into the economy. You know, you bring in bosses to cushion the effect of whatever agenda you are going to be implementing over time. So that is what the government. That's what I feel the government should. Most Nigerians agree that subsidies should be removed.
Yes.
Okay.
That we should stop paying subsidies to subsidy criminals that we've had in this country for years. Okay, most Nigerians agree. But people are starting to have second thoughts now because the way and manner the president went about implementing.
Let me interrupt you for a bit. Now, earlier, you mentioned that government is a continuum. Yes, that's for a fact. And we've seen statements, experts, sources, come out to say, oh, Tinubu inherited debts. Tinubu inherited this and that, bad governance, bad government, and all of that from the previous administration. Now, looking at Nigeria, we know that we operate a democratic system of government, a 4-year term, whereby most cases it extends to 8 years because we see these people being re-elected into office. Now, what do we say about cases where, okay, this present administration inherited bad government, debt, or whatever it is, and it's going to take the next administration about 4 years, which is like a full term, to sort out whatever issues that they met on ground. So that means that eventually an administration is using probably a full term to put things in place. How does that look, or make us understand, the implication of this from your perspective?
All right. Thank you for that very, very important question. Okay. I think this is why they say elections have consequences. So Nigerians need to understand that
Are you there?
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. The network. And I really need him to, answer that question. Because if you say that it's going to take you 3 years. Okay, we have Rotimi Akintola back. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please go ahead with your thoughts.
Okay, so as I was saying, elections have consequences. Yeah. Okay? Or elections have consequences, whichever way you want to put it. So, when you vote incompetent people into power, you understand? It is almost as if a military regime, or it's almost as if the military has truncated democracy. That is what it is. And then when we have an independent National Electoral Commission that is not really independent, so to say, I am not saying INEC is not independent, but INEC has lost credibility. If we have a country where we cannot even trust that by the time we go to the polls, we are going to elect the person we want, you understand? And then incompetent people come into power. Whatever agenda has been on ground, because there's a change in leadership doctrine, not just in the terms of party, but in terms of personality. Sometimes, whatever developmental agenda we have, that is on the continuum, there's going to be a break. And then someone else will come with his agenda, and then someone else will start implementing things. If the country was on the right course, and you have a bad leader, the bad leader is going to take the country off course. Unfortunately, this is what a lot of Nigerians believe happened with the Buhari administration. Okay. Because Jonathan wanted to remove fuel subsidy in 2012, and then there was a mass formation cycles, which Jonathan was portrayed as the enemy of Nigeria, and then the solution to that enemy of Nigeria was a military, if a former military dictator was going to come and set things right, and was going to put the country on the path of good governance. And Buhari has done that for 8 years. So, as you have said, what Tinubu has inherited now are the carcasses of Buhari's bad economic policies. So, unfortunately, it is what it is.
Okay.
We have no choice.
All right.
We have no choice. The Nigerians have to give Tinubu time in order to implement his policy.
All right. Thank you very much, Rotimi Akintola. Before we let you go this morning, one of the agenda of Mr. President, it's going to be an agenda that will span almost even the next 3-4 administrations that will come into place. It's tackling insecurity. After the appointment of the new service chiefs and the promotion that came with their appointment, we are still having insecurity. Fine, we are not saying insecurity challenges that Nigeria is currently facing is something that the Chief of Army Staff is just going to use a wave of the hand to get them out of the way. But recently in Niger State, with the way the Nigerian army were ambushed and killed, and other security development in Zamfara State, in Plateau State, in the southeastern part of the country, and it's one of the agendas that the government has put in place to be achieved within this period of 3 years. Where do you think, how do you think the government will want to, or what are the best ways do you think the Tinubu administration should tackle insecurity so that at least it could have done a better job at the end of the 3 years that he proposed?
Okay, so thank you for that question. It's good. It's good that Mr. Tinubu has come in and he has put his own people in charge of the military. But I understand that he gets it, that to solve this security crisis in Nigeria, this lingering security crisis, is a whole of society approach. Buhari has proved in 8 years, Buhari, who is a former general, a retired general, somebody with vast military experience, do you understand? Has proven in 8 years that military might is not enough. Do you understand now? So this Tinubu's economic agenda is very, very important. It's very crucial. To solve this is a whole of society approach. Until we have Nigeria's economic renewal, insecurity is not going away. That is why people go out and loot in Bayelsa. You understand that? Because they are hungry. People don't care whether the food is expired. Nobody cares. You understand me? So of course, we have a military approach to solving this security crisis. Those who commit crime should be dealt with. Do you understand?
Yes.
According to the law. Do you understand that? But a major deterrent is not just the fact that the government has the element of coercion and force, but that the economy itself, you can wake up in the morning and you have hope that you can put food on the table for your family. You can wake up in the morning and you know that there are no 15 million teenagers roaming the streets of the north, jobless.
Rotimi,
they are not in school.
I would like to interrupt you for a bit
it's a whole of
because of our
society.
time. I would like to interrupt you for a bit because of our time. I want you to touch on this very quickly.
Okay.
Now, we are talking about the president's plan, revamping the economy and all of that. Now, let's come down a bit to states. Now, we know that states are in debt. It's not the only the federal government that is in debt. I've seen headline this morning about how some of the states that are in debt are putting up appointments, essays, SSAs on matters that are very irrelevant. We've seen cases in Imo, essay on happiness, in Kano, essay on graveyard matters, essay on street lights. And this is taking money, and we're calling for a lean government and saying we don't have economic sustainability. In 1 minute, let me get your reaction to that. How can this be tackled, considering the plan that the president has laid out?
Okay, I don't think that is up to, if we are talking about states, I don't think it's up to the president. I think it's up to elections. Elections matter, and free and fair elections matter. Okay, so we must have confidence in the fact that when these clowns, many of these clowns who call themselves governors, you understand, when they misbehave, even if there are no revolutions to remove them, I do not advocate for violence, but that every 4 years, Nigerians can always go to the polls and truncate their anti-people agenda.
I think we shouldn't call the governors clowns. I think we shouldn't call the governors clowns.
Okay, maybe you don't want to call them clowns.
Yes,
right?
They are not clowns.
You don't want to call them. It's okay. So what I'm saying is, when governors fail, because the way Nigeria is structured, even with the removal of fuel subsidy now, governors now have more money to share from the federal allocation and all that. Do you understand? And even when they fail, the federal government can still pay them out. And it's not even the issue of debt now, because Lagos State is one of the most indebted states, if not the most indebted in Nigeria. But the Lagos economy works. Do you understand now? So what we need is for governors and the federal government to sit down and open up the rest of the states, so that people don't leave inner Nigeria coming to Lagos with feeling like they are coming to Dubai. Wherever you are in Nigeria, there should be economic opportunity. So the state can go and borrow as much as it wants to borrow and fund whatever it wants to fund and hire as many aides as it wants to. The most important thing is let the state economy work for the common people.
Right.
And then if that does not work, we should trust in INEC. After 4 years, you can sack the government.
Rotimi Akinola, it's been a delight speaking with you this morning on the Newspaper Review. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your thoughts with us this morning on these headlines. Thank you. We need to go now because of our time.
My pleasure.